Hello, good morning, and I say good morning because I literally just rolled out of bed. I have my cup of coffee and I am here with you to show you this really cute little journal that I made. And here is what I used as the base. If you're not from the United States, you may not know what this is. This is a local drugstore or your chemist store. If you get prescriptions on a regular basis, then you may have one or more of these each month. And so I started keeping them, thinking I'm bound to be able to think of something to do with them one day. And the other day, I finally sat down and put something together, and I really, really like it. So I hope you do too. Let me show you what it looks like. Now, I have decorated in some parts, but I'll be honest, I'm not completely done decorating because as you can see, the front cover does not have any kind of elements on it. So I didn't want to keep waiting. I wanted to go ahead and share this tutorial with you, and someday I'll finish it. But let me take you on a quick tour. Here's the inside, the front and the back. I've added pockets too. This pocket sits like this. This one comes from the side. Here are the inserts. You'll have one side that has a pocket, and then the other side is plain. Now you can go back in and add a pocket here if you would like, but I just decided to leave them as they were and then just decorate them. And I pretty much stuck with a botanical theme for this little journal. Okay, again, pocket, plain. It stays in that sequence until you get to the middle, which has two pockets. And then when you flip, it goes the opposite. So you have the solid page, and then the pocket will be on your right. Okay. And I put some little cards in here that I've gotten from my creative scrapbook kits that I've gotten over the years. And so I decided to kind of make it a cute little journal. Now it could be something else. Maybe you want to put recipes in here. If you're a couponer, maybe you want to label each side as a different section of the coupons that you collect. So, you know, this can be used for multiple things, not just for journals. But I just thought it was really cute. It's not very hard to make, and so I thought it would be a great little project to share with you. Now this little thing, when I got done, I realized, okay, it's like kind of fluffy and it would be nice to have a closure. And I turned around and there was one of these little binder clips, and I thought, you know, it was just black with the silver clasp, and I thought, surely I can improve upon that. So this was my first attempt at trying to fix up a binder clip. And, you know, it's okay, it goes, but it's a little unusual. As you can see, I have bound the clasps together, so whenever I put it on, it just stays like this, and it's not able to actually fold down. But hey, it does the job. I think it's cute. I might keep working on it. Perhaps in the future that can be its own tutorial when I maybe get the process down a little better. Okay, I've written out the dimensions for each page and the bag and everything for those of you who enjoy measurements. This one I did not measure at all. I made the insert, I made the first one by just kind of folding the paper and then cutting the extra. And then each paper after that for the insert, I just kind of held this, you know, the one I had made that looked like it fit right, and I just kind of held it up. But for this tutorial, fortunately, I had one that was left over that I did not use and was not glued down yet. So I was able to just go ahead and measure this piece of paper to provide you with detail. So I have my measurements, and like everything, I'll take pictures at the end, and I'll go ahead and take a picture of this also. But I also wrote out the steps. So I just wanted to make sure I didn't forget anything. And so as you can see, I've got 10 steps. 6 of them have to do with just gluing. So it's pretty easy. It's not a difficult project. So I hope you stick around. Since the first 4 steps have to do with gluing, I just put a little mat down over my desk. As for glues, I'll probably be using 2 glues today. The first one is my glue stick from Scotch, And of course the second is the art glitter glue. All right, so my little pill bag starts out at 5 inches by 10 inches. And as I said, step one will be gluing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue the sides of my bag, and I'm going to make sure I glue the end that is open. I want to make sure I close that. Now, when I close it, I'm going to fold it over so that the longer piece is on top. And I'm going to fold it over about 1 inch. So the paper bag, when I'm done, will be 5 inches by 9 inches. And I'm mostly just going to use my glue stick, and then I'll use the art glitter glue for like the little spots that this big old chunky glue stick can't get to. Now that that's done, as far as my bag goes, I want to go back and get any little piece that's sticking up. Okay, it will be covered by paper, so if something isn't perfectly glued down, that's okay, but it's just best to have a nice flat, solid glued surface to begin whenever you start gluing on your outside and inside cover. And gluing on the outside cover happens to be our next step. So step 2 is to glue on the outside cover. As my bag ends up to be roughly 5 by 9, I made the outside piece of paper 6 1/4 by 5 1/2. So it's much larger, because what we'll end up doing in the next step is to fold the corners down and then fold the sides and kind of fold it in on itself. But for now, we're just going to glue it down. Step 3, I'm going to fold in my corners and the edges. First, I'm going to kind of get the fold, and then I'm going to come back and glue. So I'm actually going to glue on the corner first, and then I'm going to do my next fold, which may be a little different than what I said in the beginning. Now that I've got them glued down, I'm going to take my bone folder and just really kind of go along the edges just to make sure it was glued down really well. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of the edges. Now I'll complete the other edges. All right, the outside cover is done, and now it's time to do the inside cover. Now I've cut my inside cover piece of paper at 4.5 by 8.5 inches. And we are just going to glue it down. All right, so that's it. So we've got our cover. We have paper on the outside and the inside. At this point, you can go ahead and kind of fold it over if you like, just to get it used to folding. So that's done. Now for making the pockets. As you can see, I've got some paper clips up here, and it's really to help me identify which way is up, because the paper I'm using started out as 8.5 by 11. I cut it down to 8.5 by 8.75. So it's very close to being square, but not quite, and it's easy for your eye to get confused as to which way is supposed to be up. So it's 8.5 by 8.75. Now, what I'm going to do is I want to use the leftover from my 8.5 by 11 sheet. So we have pieces of paper that are 2.25 inches. I want to add a strip of paper along the top, because what I'm going to do to make the pocket is just fold this over and leave about an inch, at least an inch up at the top. So I don't want that just to be white. You can definitely leave it white if you like, but I want to cover mine. So I'm going to open them up just so I can see the different patterns. And I'm going to mix and match the tops. You can definitely stick with paper it goes to, but as you can see on this one, I kind of mixed and matched. So this was the pattern for my pocket, and then I added this color at the top. Pocket and then the top. You can do whichever one you like. I like to mix them up. So I'm going to just pair them up right now, and then I'll flip it over and glue. Now I know this is facing the right way because my paper, because this is 8.75, remember, width, and this is just 8.5. So it doesn't quite fit edge to edge. And that's one way it helps me know I've got my paper facing the right direction. If that bothers you, if you have more of this paper that you use, you can go back and cut it to match it perfectly. I'm okay with the edges. I'll probably go around and ink them anyway, so it really won't be very noticeable. But you do what makes you feel comfortable. All right, for step 6, I'm going to go around and ink my edges, and then I'm going to fold my pocket up. And when I fold it up, I'm going to leave, like I said, about an inch at the top. You might want to make that larger or smaller, however much room you have. Now remember, if you're using double-sided paper, of course you don't need to do this step, maybe because it's already got a pattern on it. But since I covered the white space, I am going to go ahead and ink my edges. I went ahead and folded them in half because the next step I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out just a little notch, and I'm going to use my circle punch. And this way it gives me an idea where the center is, so I know about where to do my hole punch. As you can see, I just folded, I didn't measure out an inch, I just guessed. And I'm going to do the same thing with my circle punch. I'm just going to stick it in and just, try to get it as even as possible. But, it's really no pressure. This is a fun project. It doesn't have to be perfect. You got to remember, even when it's gluing stuff down, no matter what you're doing, we aren't machines. A machine can be set to a certain criteria, and it absolutely is practically perfect every time. I know I'm not like that, so just don't worry. Don't put so much pressure on yourself about gluing. Everything has to be just perfect. Do the best you can, get it pretty close, and that will be just fine. So I'm going to turn it upside down, and I can see where the center is. And I'm going to flip my hole punch over so that I can get an idea of where exactly my hole will be. And I try to get it as even as I can, about where I think it should go, and then punch. And I'll do the same thing over here, and punch. And there you go. Now, the last one I came around and inked all of this, and I will probably do the same thing just because, I don't know, I don't like it if, like, you could see the white, especially since I've already inked part of the project. I don't want anything, white to kind of glare and show, because it will really stand out. So I'm going to do all my punches, and then I'm going to come back and then just ink this little section right here. Okay, so now my pocket has been folded and punched, and it has been inked, and now I'm ready to glue. Now all I'm going to do is run a little bead of glue on each side, and then pull it up and then glue it down. I'm not going to glue in the middle because I'm going to end up punching holes and sewing it into my cover. And so there just really wasn't any need to glue down in the middle because it's going to be bound there anyway. But if you want to add glue, you go right ahead. But I chose not to. All right, we are done gluing, so you can put all of your glue away. Our pockets are made, and now I'm just going to figure out what order I want them in. I'm going to consider the colors, the pattern, as well as the size, because I know my trimmer, it just has marks. I don't know. So sometimes it doesn't trim properly. So some of these may be bigger than the others. So I'm going to try to figure out the order so that they fit in and nestle nicely. All right, so I think I like this order. When they're stacked all together, as they're cut the same size, you might have a little bit poke out here, but if that bothers you, then you might want to come in and trim if you really want them all to be exactly flush. But otherwise, I tend not to worry about it. I took a look at my other one, and it's funny because they all matched up perfectly, and I didn't trim on the edge at all, so I have no idea how I did that. It just was luck. So this one, it sticks out just a little bit, but honestly, I'm okay. And it may even be different once I poke my holes and attach it into my cover. So I'm going to leave it as it is for now. And I'm going to bring my cover back in. All right, so make sure all of your pockets are at the top. You don't want to set it up, you know, to be upside down, because that's totally something I would do. So make sure it's all set up the right way and push it as far in as you can so that they're flush. Okay, and then I'm just going to lay it in the center. Where I got it just about where I want it, I'm going to use my clips and just clip it together to try to keep it into place. Don't want it shifting around any when we're trying to punch our holes. So now I'm just going to decide where I want my holes. I'm going to add 3 holes and just do the standard pamphlet stitch. So I want my first hole to grab the top of my pocket. So I'm going to come down and probably put it right about here. And then the next one, approximately the same distance in from the bottom. And then I'll stick one in the middle. Looking at my other one, it looks like my hole was a little bit higher. So I may actually move this one up just a little bit. So using the pencil really came in handy there. Okay. So to punch my holes, I'm going to use the Crocodile 2. Now, making this first little journal was the first time I ever used this. I've had it for a little while, but just have not needed it because my smaller one would not reach the center hole. So this comes in really handy. I have it set to 1/8, kind of in the middle. Now when you push down, you can see the hole punch comes way back here. To me, I think it's kind of hard to see. I really have to look sideways to see if the punch part is coming down where I want my hole. But it's a little tricky. You just have to kind of look from the side. Let's just see how this goes. So I'm going to start. What I do is I kind of start to push it far enough to where I can see where it's coming down, and then I can adjust my page accordingly to get it over my mark. All right, so right about there. All right, that worked well. All right, there we go. I don't know that it's super easy to use that hole punch, but it comes in really handy. Now, if you don't have the Crocodile 2, normally I would have just used an awl, which you can get one in this little kit that I got. It's 10 bucks and it's called Shappy? 15-piece something. And sewing, binding, I'm not sure, it's kind of abbreviated, but it was 10 bucks and you get all of these supplies. You get your 3 kinds of string, your large-eyed needles, which is critical, 2 bone folders, this little clipper, this little cutting device, and you get this nifty little awl. It's like $9.99 or $10.99 or something like that. So you could just mark your spot with your pencil and then just use your awl to push through. But if you have a Crocodile, it comes in really handy. The holes are nice and clean. So I got mine with my Christmas gift cards. So they're not super cheap, but if you make a lot of journals, it's probably worth the investment. So with my holes punched, all we have left to do is sew it together. And for that, I'm going to use one of these large eye needles. They come in a variety of sizes too, which is really awesome. And I'm going to choose some string. But looking at my cover, I figured, this is probably the color that goes best. So how do you know how much of this to use? The standard way to figure out that's pretty much foolproof is to pull out 3 times the length of your booklet that you're sewing. So that's 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so we'll take our needle, we'll thread it, pull it through long enough, to leave a little tail so it's not going to pull right out. If you want your tie to end up on the inside, you start sewing from the inside. If you want it to end up on the outside, maybe you want to have it hang down and put some charms or whatever on it, then you would need to start from the outside. I'm just going to go ahead and have mine on the inside again. So I'm going to start sewing from the inside, and you start with the very center hole. You pull it through, okay? Now you pull it through, and you have to leave enough hanging here. You don't want to pull all the way through. So once you start from the center, you go all the way up from the top, and you come back from the outside to the inside. Okay, so here's what you've got. I'm not sure if you can see, my string is so light. So from here, we're going to go all the way down to the bottom. Okay, and we'll pull that through. So that's what we've got. Now to finish up, we're going to come back through the center hole again. Okay. Whoops. All right, and there we go. Now, and this part is pretty important. You see my center string where I went from the top all the way down to the bottom? You want one of the ends to be on one side and the other end to be on the other side. Because now we're going to tie it off, and that will be in the middle, and we're going to, to make sure it's tied down really well. So you want to pull it so where these, you don't want it to be super loose like that. I don't know if you can see how it's just kind of loose. You want to pull it so that it's taut. There you go. It is just paper, so you don't want to pull so where it's, you're really putting a lot of pressure on your holes, but you don't want it loosey-goosey either. So you want to pull it to where it's nice and firm, but not pulling too hard. Okay, and from here, we're just going to add a couple of knots. So Pam at the Paper Outpost, I kind of follow what her guidance was. I started out right over left for my first knot, and then the second knot I do left over right. Does it make a difference? Honestly, I don't know. But it sounded good, and so that's just what I usually end up doing as well. So there you go. You can add another knot for good measure. You can add a little bow. I'm going to snip the ends just a little bit. Take off my paper clips, and here we go. All that's left to do is to go in, and you can add pockets and just decorate. I'm not going to decorate this one right now, but there you go. And that is all it is to make this cute little journal. Like I said, you can use it as a journal or really whatever you want. The possibilities are endless. I just want to say thank you so much to those of you who've been leaving comments. I've seen more comments come through, and I'm telling you, it had a direct impact on my channel. I've had a nice uptick in my subscriber count, and I know it is directly related to the comments and likes that you're putting on my videos. So thank you so much. It's such a shame that it's like that. Everyone hates to have to beg for you to to like and subscribe and leave comments and do this and do that. But that's just the way YouTube works, and it makes such a big difference. So thank you for that, and that's a great way to support me and support my channel and help it grow. I really appreciate it. If you like this tutorial, give me that thumbs up, and if you found it informative and would like to check out other videos, then please go check out my channel. And if you like the content there, I would really appreciate it if you would subscribe. All right, friends, that's it for this one. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.